It's no secret, but DC hasn't exactly had the easiest time at the movies of the last decade of the DCEU, which was pretty much a resounding failure, with the last year being an especially horrendous streak of flops that just gets worse and worse, and despite being a sequel to a billion-dollar movie, Aquaman 2 isn't really looking to stop that streak either. However, 2023 also marks the end of that shared universe that defined the last decade of DC movies, and 2024 and beyond marks the beginning of something new, a new universe with new direction, and hopefully higher, more consistent quality that leads to better success. What I'll be going over in this video, in as much detail as possible, is every confirmed DC movie that we know will release in 2024 and beyond, including any non-theatrically released animated movies, of which there are only 2 for right now because they typically announce them the year prior. What I will not be discussing in this video beyond listing them are Justice League X RWBY, Superheroes and Huntsman Part 2, Merry Little Batman, or Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, because they all release in 2023 and are therefore not relevant to the topic of this video, and neither are any of the announced TV shows. So with that in mind, let's begin. To start things off in 2024, we have the only theatrically released movie, DC's second 5-year-later sequel to a billion-dollar movie in a row after Aquaman, with Joker Folie, Deux, which translates to Joker Madness for Two. This movie is the only movie releasing this year, making 2024 the first year since 2015 that DC is releasing less than 2 movies, although in 2015 they released 0. Joker 2 began filming in December 2022, finished in April 2023, and will release on October 4th, 2024. Joker 2 will apparently be a musical, so it completely switched genres, and is called Folie due to the introduction of the second theatrical interpretation of Harley Quinn, this time played by Lady Gaga, which certainly fits the fact that it's a musical, if nothing else. Aside from that, we don't know much about the plot yet. The first movie ended rather ambiguously, so the sequel will almost certainly have to answer whether or not the events of the first movie actually happened in the way that they were shown. To that point, the only returning cast member aside from Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck, aka Joker, is Zazie Beetz as Sophie Dumont, either confirming he didn't kill her in Joker 1 like it was hinted that he might have, or maybe continuing to be a figment of his imagination like she was for the most part in the first movie. Either way, Joker 2 is sure to be an extremely unique comic movie that changes genres from its predecessor, and while musicals aren't for everyone, there simply has to be a reason this specifically is what they're going for. It's so different from the first movie and most other comic book movies that there had to have been some sort of vision here, so at the very least that will be interesting. Joker 2 will be directed by Todd Phillips, who directed the first one, written by Todd Phillips and Scott Silver, and take place not in the DCU, which was pretty obvious. From here on out, every non-DCU movie or even TV show will be taking place in a universe called an Elseworld. This one in particular will probably end up being called the Jokerverse. While Joker 2 will be the only theatrically released DC movie in 2024, DC always releases 2 or 3 straight-to-DVD animated movies, usually not announcing them until the year prior. Because of this, we only really know about the animated movies of 2024, of which there are 2, and both of them just so happen to be adaptations of very famous comic stories from 1986. First is Watchmen, most likely a straight one-to-one direct adaptation of the famous comic story like the 2009 movie was. Although these movies are usually around like 80 to 90 minutes long, and I don't think the entire Watchmen story can fit into that, especially since the 2009 movie was almost 3 hours long. However, I think it can be assumed that Rorschach, Night Owl, Silk Spectre, Comedian, Dr. Manhattan, Ozymandias, and a few others will all be appearing. Watchmen will most likely be completely standalone, although there is a small chance that it can connect to the other animated movie from 2024. For right now, we don't know anything else about Watchmen, including the release date beyond the year 2024. Although considering how late in the year Joker 2 is coming out, I think it's more likely than not that both of these animated movies will come out prior. The second movie is a Tomorrowverse set direct sequel to and set up by this year's Justice League Warworld, Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths, which just like Watchmen is a comic story from 1986, although it did start in 1985, which has been adapted into live action before, at the very least loosely. Based on the end of Justice League Warworld, we know for a fact that the Tomorrowverse's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Harbinger will all be appearing, but in addition to that, I think it's pretty safe to assume that this will at the very least be a universe-encompassing event featuring characters from the Justice League Legion of Superheroes and the Justice Society of Earth 2, which Justice Society World War II is also a movie that set up the Crisis as well. And while there's no confirmation for this, it would be a missed opportunity not to take the Crisis event as a way to incorporate every previous animated movie universe, or at the very least the big ones, establishing them all as a part of one animated multiverse, with the Crisis acting as a sort of finale before the new direction that James Gunn will be taking with animated movies, setting most of them in the DCU. That would definitely run the risk of being way too large for one animated movie. However, it's fortunate that there are rumors that this will actually be the first part to a Christ Son of an Earth trilogy, and if those rumors are true, then I think they could definitely pull that off. If this is the case, it's entirely possible that all 3 parts will be released in 2024, given that the 2 parts of Batman The Long Halloween released within a month of each other in 2021. For me personally, that would more than make up for there being only one theatrically released DC movie in 2024 that is also completely standalone. Although 2024 having no DCEU or DCU movies makes it a bit of a transitional year for DC, one that will lead into the DCU era starting with Superman Legacy. While not the first DCU project, as it will be preceded by both Creature Commandos and Waller, Superman Legacy is the first official DCU movie and will no doubt act as the introductory foundation on which the entire DCU will be built. Releasing on July 11th, 2025, Superman Legacy stars David Cornsweet as the new Clark Kent, aka Superman, and Kal-El, and Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, said to be almost an equal protagonist to Superman. Also confirmed to be appearing are some classic Superman characters like Jimmy Olsen, Perry White, Lex Luthor, and even Krypto the Superdog, as well as, surprisingly enough, 4 other confirmed DC heroes, all of whom have already been cast. Michael Holt, aka Mr. Terrific, played by Eddie Gathegi, Hawkgirl, played by Isabella Merced, although it's unclear which version of Hawkgirl it'll be, Guy Gardner, aka Green Lantern, played by Nathan Fillion, and making their live-action debut is Metamorpho, played by Anthony Carrigan. It's also been rumored that Lobo will appear, and I think it's possible that Supergirl will appear as well, given that she's getting her own movie a couple years later. As long as the strike has ended by then, Superman Legacy will begin filming in January 2024 and will shoot all over the world, with Atlanta acting as their home base. Legacy has been written by and will be directed by James Gunn, with the movie featuring a lot of the same blood as Gunn's previous comic book movies, the same cinematographer as Guardians 2, Holiday Special, Volume 3, and The Suicide Squad, although it also has the same cinematographer as The Flash, the same costume designer as the Holiday Special and Volume 3, The Suicide Squad, as well as the 4 MCU Russo Brothers movies. Finally, the same production designer as the Guardians Holiday Special, Volume 3, and The Suicide Squad. So yeah, I think we can expect it to feel and definitely look a lot like Gunn's previous comic book ventures, which in my opinion is almost entirely a good thing. Also, according to Gunn, Superman Legacy will take inspiration either in how it feels or maybe even some story elements from All-Star Superman, Superman Birthright, and Superman Brainiac. Will not be an origin story, but instead focus on a semi-experienced Superman and tells the story of Superman's journey to reconcile his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. Clark is described by Gunn as the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way, guided by human kindness in a world that sees kindness as old-fashioned. 2025 is sure to be a monumental year in the history of DC, as just 3 months after a Superman movie releases, and I think probably either a little bit before or after a Spider-Man movie releases, there will be a Batman movie as well, marking the first time the two faces of DC have ever had a movie released in the same year. However, these 2 movies are not set in the same universe. The Batman Part 2 is set in the Batverse, which is completely separate from the DCU, and is a sequel to 2022's The Batman, releasing on October 3rd, 2025. It stars Robert Pattinson as Batman, Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon, Andy Serkis as Alfred, and most likely several more returning characters from The Batman. Matt Reeves returns as both director and writer alongside Peter Craig, and although there was a tease to the Joker in the first movie, there are many rumors for other villains like Clayface, Hush, and the Court of Owls, as well as what seems to be a very popular choice, Mr. Freeze. There are also rumors that this world's Dick Grayson, aka Robin, will debut not too long before another Robin debuts in another universe, and none of this has been confirmed as of yet. What has been confirmed is that this world will remain separate from the DCU, which will feature its own Batman, played by a different actor. The Batman Part 2 is supposed to begin filming in November of this year, although the actor strike is currently still going on, so it's very possible it will be delayed. And it's also very possible that there will be 2 different Batman movies filming, or at the very least being produced at the same time. From here on out, the release dates become speculative. We don't know the release dates of these movies aside from the fact that they're all coming out after Superman Legacy, so I'm going to be predicting each one, starting with The Brave and the Bold, which, if I could, I'd add Batman: to the title, but either way, James Gunn mentioned at one point that they wouldn't release the 2 confirmed Batman movies less than 6 months apart, and would definitely have to wait a bit more than that. So, with that in mind, I'd predict that The Brave and the Bold will actually be the 3rd movie in the DCU. We'll get back to the second one in a bit, and it will release in mid-2026 till late 2026, maybe sometime between May and July. So let's just go in the middle here. My official prediction is June 2026. The Brave and the Bold will be directed by Andy Muschietti, who previously directed the It movies and unfortunately The Flash, but I think that movie was working against him the entire time, and the Batman parts of the movie are not bad, so I think he could still make a good Batman movie. I wouldn't hold it against him too much. It will be based on Grant Morrison's run on Batman, focusing on a newly cast Bruce Wayne learning that he has a son named Damian, who then becomes Robin. Gunn has also mentioned that the larger Bat family will be involved, so far confirming for the universe Nightwing and Cassandra Cain. Putting two and two together, it's almost certain that they will be appearing in this movie. It would also suggest that Barbara Gordon, Stephanie Brown, Tim Drake, and maybe Jason Todd, if he's alive at that point, will be appearing as well. And if I had to make another prediction, I'd guess that Talia al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul are the most likely main villains, even though they have both been main villains of Batman movies before. The one remaining DC movie that as of right now has a confirmed director is Swamp Thing, which will be directed by James Mangold, who previously directed The Wolverine and, more importantly, Logan, and will take inspiration from Alan Moore's run in the comics, which redefined the character, and the movie is described as a very dark horror story and the origins of the monster who is Swamp Thing, and although it's totally outside of the rest of the DCU, it will still feed into the rest of the stories. In 2019, Swamp Thing had a cut far too short TV show that, while limited by budget, was still very interesting, so I'd definitely like to see more of the character in a bigger budget context. I will predict that Swamp Thing will be the third DCU movie of 2026 and the fourth overall, and based on the horror-based nature of the movie, an October release is the most likely. However, based on the art shown for the movie, a December release would also make a lot of sense. I do think that October is more likely, so my prediction is October 2026. Going back a bit with my prediction being early 2026, The Authority I think will be the second movie released in the DCU, and if I had to guess specifically, I'd say February 2026. The Authority are definitely the least known characters on this list. They originated as characters from the Wildstorm universe, which was only integrated into DC in 2011 with the New 52. Before that, the Authority were exactly as they're described for this movie, a group of superheroes who think that the world is broken and takes matters into their own hands to do what they believe is right. However, in the DC universe, the Authority would most certainly be considered villains. In fact, DC did make their own version of the team called the Elite as a response to the Authority, who then became Superman villains, and this has led to rumors about the Authority being followed up on, alongside Superman Legacy, with a Superman vs. the Authority movie that adapts Superman vs. the Elite, or its comic book story, What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way. No individual character has been officially confirmed, however, the official art used for the movie, which also comes from the movie's comic inspiration, The Authority Volume 1, features the original team lineup, including Midnighter, Apollo, Jenny Sparks, the Doctor, Jack Hawksmoor, and Swift. Although seeing as how visually similar Swift is to Hawkgirl, and Hawkgirl has already been confirmed for this universe, I can see Swift either not being included or being swiftly killed off. While a director hasn't been confirmed, strong rumors suggest that Matthew Vaughn, who directed X-Men First Class, the Kick-Ass movies, and the Kingsman movies, will be the director. Finally is Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, hinted by James Gunn to come out around 2 years after Superman Legacy, which will be my prediction as well, specifically maybe March 2027. Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow does not have a single human being attached to it for now, including the actress, who will almost certainly not be Sasha Calle. I'd bet money on it not being her. What we do know is that it gets its name from its comic inspiration, Tom King's Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow from 2022. In my opinion, one of the best looking comics ever made visually, with also fantastically interesting characterization for Kara, and a story where Kara finds herself in a cosmic adventure helping a girl find the man who murdered her father. It can be assumed that the movie will follow a similar plot, although the comic doesn't really have any named villains, so there almost certainly will be some changes to the story, and it won't be a direct adaptation. I'm talking about the differences between Superman and Supergirl, maybe trying to justify why 2 of the 5 movies that are released are both about Kryptonians named Super something. James Gunn said, Superman is a guy sent to Earth and raised by loving parents, whereas Supergirl, in the story, she is a character raised on a chunk of Krypton. She watched everyone around her perish in some terrible way, so she's a much more jaded character, and that's a part of Supergirl's characterization that I think was completely missed in the CW version of the character, and I'd love to see that on screen. It is definitely what differentiates her from Superman in a very meaningful way. So that is it for this video. Let me know in the comments down below which one of these movies you're most anticipating. For me right now, I think because of how important it will be for the future of DC, it has to be Superman Legacy. But let me know in the comments down below, and if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching and all that. Bye.